I had saved for 3 years. 3 years of skipped vacations, packed lunches, double shifts, and saying no to everything I wanted so I could say yes to the one day I had dreamed about my entire life. $11,400 sitting in a savings account with my name on it, earmarked for the wedding I had planned down to the last detail. And then one morning I logged into my bank app, and the balance said 0. My sister had taken every single penny. But here's the thing about stealing from the wrong person: karma doesn't forget. And what happened to her next was something I could never have scripted, even if I tried. My name is Savannah Grace Pelletier. I am 34 years old, and I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a city that smells like jasmine and river water, and the kind of heat that wraps around you like a second skin from April through October. I was born and raised here, went to LSU for my accounting degree, and built a life in the city that I am genuinely proud of. I work as a senior accountant at a mid-size commercial real estate firm downtown. I am careful with money, professionally and personally. I keep spreadsheets for my grocery budget. I have an emergency fund, a retirement contribution that I have never missed, and I track every single dollar that comes in and goes out of my accounts. People who know me well joke that I was probably born with a calculator in my hand. So when I tell you that my sister stole $11,400 from me, I need you to understand exactly what that money represented. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a calculated, deliberate theft, made possible by the one thing I never thought to protect myself against: the trust one had placed in my own family. My sister's name is Miranda Jean Pelletier. She is 3 years older than me, 37 now, and she has always been, for lack of a more precise term, the family tornado. The kind of person who blows into a room and rearranges everything and then acts surprised when people are upset about the furniture. Growing up, Miranda was the loud one, the dramatic one, the one who could charm anyone in the first 5 minutes and exhaust them completely by the end of the hour. Our parents, Daddy, who we call Pop, and our mother Diane, loved us both fiercely and differently. Pop had a soft spot for Miranda that I think even he couldn't fully explain. She was his firstborn, his firecracker, the one who made him laugh. I was quieter, more serious, more like our mother. We were never rivals exactly, but we were never as close as I think our parents hoped we would be. Still, she was my sister. And I trusted her. That was my mistake. I need to tell you about Marcus before I tell you the rest, because Marcus is the reason the wedding fund existed, and the reason this story matters as much as it does. I met Marcus Thibodeau at a work conference in New Orleans in the spring about 4 years ago. He was presenting a session on commercial property valuation, which I know sounds about as romantic as a tax return, but the way he talked about it, the way his whole face lit up when he got into the details, I remember thinking, this man is genuinely passionate about what he does. That is an attractive quality in a person. It doesn't matter what the subject is. We talked for 3 hours at the conference dinner. We exchanged numbers. We texted every day for 2 weeks before he finally asked if he could take me to dinner in Baton Rouge. He drove an hour and a half each way just to have dinner with me. On our second anniversary, sitting on the back porch of his house in Prairieville watching the fireflies come up out of the grass, he got down on one knee and proposed with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. I said yes before he finished the sentence. We set the wedding date for 18 months out, a Saturday in October, because Louisiana in October is as close to paradise as this state gets. We chose a venue, a restored antebellum plantation house that had been converted into an event space about 20 minutes outside the city. We started planning. And I started saving. I opened a dedicated savings account specifically for wedding expenses. Every 2 weeks, a portion of my paycheck went directly into that account, automatically, without me even having to think about it. I cut back on everything I could cut back on. I brought my lunch to work 5 days a week. I canceled my gym membership and started running in the neighborhood. I skipped the girls' trips to Destin and Gulf Shores that my friends took every summer. Marcus contributed too, of course. He was paying for the honeymoon fund separately, which was his way of handling things. Between the two of us, we had a plan, a budget, and a timeline. Over the course of about 3 years, including the year before we got engaged, when I had started saving with the vague hope that marriage was coming, I had accumulated $11,400. That was my share of the wedding budget. The venue deposit, the catering down payment, the photographer's retainer, the florist, the dress. All of it was mapped out in a spreadsheet that I had color-coded by category and priority. I was proud of that money. Not in an arrogant way, in the way that a person is proud of something they worked for and sacrificed for and built carefully over a long period of time. It represented discipline and love, and the future I was building with Marcus. Now let me tell you how Miranda got access to it. About 8 months before the wedding, Miranda called me in tears. This was not an unusual occurrence. Miranda called in tears with some regularity, and the crises varied widely in their actual severity. But this time, she sounded genuinely desperate. She told me she was behind on rent. 3 months behind, she said, because she had lost her job as an office manager at a landscaping company and hadn't told anyone, because she was embarrassed. She said her landlord had given her a final notice, and she was going to be evicted within 2 weeks if she couldn't come up with the back rent. How much? I asked. $2,200, she said. I told her I didn't have that kind of money just sitting around, which was technically true, since my savings were earmarked. She cried harder. She said she had called Pop and he couldn't help because he and Mama were on a fixed income and had already drained their emergency fund helping her once before, 2 years ago, a fact I had not been aware of. I just need it for 2 months, she said. I have a second interview at a property management company next week. If I get the job, I'll start paying you back immediately. I swear on Mama's life, Savannah. I swear. I should have said no. Every sensible, logical, accountant-brained part of me knew I should say no. But she was my sister. And she was crying. And she swore on our mother's life. I told her I would help her, but that I couldn't just write her a check for that amount without it affecting my wedding budget. I told her I would look at my accounts and figure something out. And then I made the single biggest financial mistake of my adult life. I added Miranda as an authorized user to my wedding savings account. My thinking, and I cringe writing this, because I know how naive it sounds, was that I would transfer $2,000 from my savings into a separate account and let Miranda access it from there through the shared account access. It was a temporary, transitional solution while I figured out the logistics. I was going to handle the actual transfer the next morning. I forgot to do it that night. I got caught up in a work deadline and a phone call with Marcus that ran long, and I went to bed thinking I would handle it first thing in the morning. Miranda handled it first. I woke up at 6:45 on a Tuesday morning, reached for my phone to turn off my alarm, and out of habit opened my banking app to check my balances the way I do every morning. The wedding savings account showed a balance of $0.00. I sat up in bed so fast I got dizzy. I refreshed the page. 0. I went to the transaction history. At 11:47 the previous night, while I was sleeping, every dollar in that account had been transferred out by the authorized user, my sister, to an external account I didn't recognize. $11,400. Gone. I called Miranda immediately. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent a text that I will not quote here because it was not my most composed moment. I called a 3rd time. She picked up on the 3rd call. Savannah, she said, and her voice had that particular quality it gets when she is about to explain something she knows she cannot actually explain. Careful. Measured. Like she was choosing each word individually. Miranda, I said, where is my money? There was a pause. I needed it, she said. I'll pay it back. I told you I'd pay it back. You took all of it, I said. You took $11,000. Miranda, that is my wedding fund. That is 3 years of savings. That is the venue deposit and the catering and the photographer. I know what it is, she said. And I'm sorry. But I was desperate, and you said you were going to help me, and I said I was going to help you with $2,000, I said. 2,000. Not 11,400. Miranda, what did you do with it? Another pause. Longer this time. I had some other debts, she said quietly. Credit cards. A personal loan that was about to go to collections. I needed to get everything cleared at once. I needed a fresh start. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The first call I made after I hung up with Miranda was to Marcus. He was at the gym, and he called me back within 4 minutes, still breathing hard from his workout. I told him what had happened. There was a long silence on his end that I will always remember, not because he was angry at me, but because I could hear him choosing, very carefully, how to respond so that he didn't make things worse. Okay, he said finally. Okay, what do you need from me right now? That is the man I am marrying. The second call I made was to my bank. I explained the situation to the fraud department and was told, politely, apologetically, and firmly, that because Miranda was an authorized user on the account and had not technically done anything that violated the bank's terms of access, there was nothing the bank could do on their end. The transfer had been made legally, from a technical standpoint. What you're describing, the representative told me, sounds like it may be a civil or criminal matter. I'd recommend speaking with an attorney or contacting your local law enforcement. The third call I made was to the Baton Rouge Police Department non-emergency line. I filed a report. The officer I spoke with explained that because Miranda was an authorized user, the criminal theft case was complicated, but that given the circumstances and the amount involved, it was worth pursuing. He took down all the information and told me a detective would be in touch. The fourth call I made was to an attorney. What I did not anticipate, or maybe I did anticipate it and just couldn't bring myself to believe it, was my mother's reaction. When I called my parents to tell them what Miranda had done, Mama's first response was to cry. Her second response was to ask me if I was sure. Her third response was to say, Savannah, she's your sister. Can't you two work this out between yourselves? I want to be fair to my mother, because she is a good woman who spent her entire adult life trying to hold a family together that had some significant structural weaknesses. But in that moment, sitting on the edge of my bed with $0 in my wedding savings account and a police report number written on the back of a grocery receipt, her question nearly broke me. Mama, I said, she stole $11,000 from me. My wedding money. There is nothing to work out. She stole it. Pop was quieter. After Mama had said her piece, he got on the phone and there was a long silence, and then he said, I'm sorry, baby girl. That wasn't right. That was not right. And that was all he said, but coming from my father, it was enough. Miranda, meanwhile, had gone completely dark. No calls, no texts, no response. She had, I would later find out, told a version of events to certain family members in which she had borrowed the money with my permission, and I was overreacting. There were cousins and aunts who heard that version first and formed opinions based on it. Family gatherings became minefields. Thanksgiving that year was something I would rather not revisit. My attorney, a sharp and no-nonsense woman named Rebecca Fontenot who practiced civil litigation out of an office on Government Street, filed a civil suit against Miranda for the full amount plus legal fees and damages. Rebecca was clear-eyed about the situation from the beginning. The authorized user issue complicates the criminal case, she told me, but it does not protect her in civil court. She had access to that account for a specific and limited purpose, which you can demonstrate through your communications with her. She used that access to take an amount far beyond what was discussed, for purposes entirely unrelated to what was agreed. That is conversion. That is fraud. The detective assigned to my case, a tired-looking man named Detective Arsenault who had clearly seen everything, eventually agreed. After reviewing the text messages between Miranda and me, the recorded phone call I had made to her the morning I discovered the theft, and the bank transfer records, he determined that there was sufficient basis to move forward with criminal charges. Miranda was charged with theft by fraud. In Louisiana, theft of property valued at $5,000 or more is a felony. My sister was facing felony charges. Here is where karma makes its entrance. And I want to be honest, I did not enjoy watching what happened to Miranda. Some people in my position might have. I did not. But I also cannot pretend it didn't happen. The property management company that Miranda had interviewed with, the job she had told me she was counting on, the job she had used as justification for why she'd be able to pay me back, had offered her the position. She had accepted it. She had started the job 2 weeks after she stole my money, which meant she had an income, and simply chose not to return what she had taken. When her new employer conducted a routine background check, something that many property management companies do on an ongoing basis for employees who handle financial accounts, Miranda's pending criminal charges appeared. She was terminated. She lost her fresh start because of the charges that existed because of the theft she committed to fund her fresh start. There is a particular, terrible symmetry to that which I have thought about many times. She was also evicted from the apartment she had supposedly been trying to save, because with no job and mounting legal fees, she couldn't pay her rent anyway. And the personal loan she had paid off with my money? The lender, upon being contacted by my attorney as part of the civil discovery process, confirmed that Miranda had indeed used the funds to pay off existing debts, which actually strengthened our fraud case, because it demonstrated deliberate and premeditated intent. The civil case settled before it went to trial. Facing both the civil suit and the criminal charges, Miranda, through her court-appointed attorney, agreed to a repayment plan and a formal legal judgment against her for the full amount plus my legal fees. In total, she owed me $14,200. She also pleaded guilty to a reduced charge, misdemeanor theft, as part of a plea agreement that included 2 years of probation, mandatory financial counseling, and community service hours. She avoided felony conviction, which I had mixed feelings about but ultimately accepted, because what I wanted was my money back and accountability, not my sister in prison. The repayment has been slow. There is a court order, and she pays it monthly, and it will take years. But it is coming. Marcus and I got married on the 3rd Saturday of October, just as we had planned, at that beautiful restored plantation house 20 minutes outside Baton Rouge. The venue was draped in white lights and autumn greenery. The air smelled like wood smoke and the gardenias I had chosen for my bouquet. We had to adjust some things. The photographer we had originally booked had to be replaced with someone slightly less expensive. We scaled back the catering package. We made compromises. But we got married in the way we had dreamed, with the people we loved around us, and Marcus cried when he saw me walk down the aisle, which is something I will carry in my heart every single day for the rest of my life. Miranda was not at the wedding. I made that decision after a great deal of thought and prayer and long conversations with Marcus and with my therapist, a wonderful woman I had started seeing in the months after the theft, because I needed to process what had happened in a space where I could be honest about all of it, the anger, the grief, the guilt, the complicated love that you carry for a sibling who has hurt you badly. My parents attended. It was hard for all of us in different ways. But they were there. They danced at my wedding. They held my hands when Marcus and I said our vows. And Daddy cried too, which he would deny to anyone who asks. If you are watching this and you are thinking, I would never be that naive. I would never add a family member to my savings account. I understand why you feel that way. But I also want to gently push back on the idea that what happened to me was purely the result of naivety. What happened to me was the result of trusting someone I loved. And while I have learned practical lessons from this experience, Never add anyone to a financial account without legal safeguards in place. No matter who they are, I refuse to let those practical lessons harden me into someone who cannot extend trust at all. I am still a person who believes in family. I am still a person who answers the phone when people I love call. I am just a person who now knows, with absolute certainty, that love and financial access are two entirely separate things, and one should never be used to justify the other. What Miranda did was wrong. It was selfish, it was calculated, and it caused real damage, not just to my bank account, but to my family, to my peace of mind, to the joy of my engagement. She has never fully apologized in a way that I felt was genuine. She has never said, plainly and without qualification, "I knew what I was doing and it was wrong, and I am sorry." Maybe she will, someday. Maybe she won't. But I got married to the love of my life on a Saturday in October under white lights, holding gardenias, while my daddy cried in the front row. And the monthly deposit from Miranda's court-ordered repayment plan lands in my account on the 15th of every month, regular as a heartbeat. And every time I see it, I think karma is patient. But karma always balances the books. My name is Savannah Grace Pelletier Thibodeau. I am 34 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I got my wedding. And I got my justice. Both on my own terms. Thanks for listening me.